Hey, this is Guy Unger again. I'm going to do a basic video today on open position chords. There's tons of songs that use open position chords, and it's a great place to start. So let's get to it. All right, so the first thing to kind of get into here is you got to understand what's what, so string-wise and fret-wise and finger-wise to play some chords. So without getting too deep into everything, we're just going to cut to the chase. As you know, a guitar has 6 strings. Hopefully you know that. If you don't, then now you do. And your number 1 string is this high E right here. All right, our number 2 string is a B, and that's right here. Our number 3 string is our G. Number 4 string is our D. Number 5 string is our A. And number 6 string is our E. We have 2 E's. We have a high E and we have a low E. All right, so that helps us out. So if I tell you to play a note on the 3rd string, you're going to go 1, 2, 3. And you're going to understand that. If I tell you to play a note on the 5th string, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and down to 5. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so the next thing that we have to understand in addition to the strings is like, well, where at on the string do we play? Well, we have these metal lines going across here, which are your frets. And instead of playing your finger on top of the fret, you play just behind the fret. All right? So if you'll notice, my finger is not on the fret. You'll have that sound. It's just behind it. You get a much cleaner sound that way. All right? All right, so, but we're going to deal mostly with just open position stuff here. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and maybe the 4th fret in certain situations. But today we won't be dealing with that. All right, so the next thing that we have to think about is our fingers. What fingers go where? And we have numbers for those as well in the guitar world. Your index finger is number 1. So, hey, I'm number 1. 1, 2, 3, and then your pinky is 4. Sometimes you will use your thumb, but in the beginning I don't recommend it. There'll be chords that we play where you actually wrap your thumb around the neck. All right, but for now, wouldn't worry about that. All right, so the next part that we really need to concentrate on and understand is reading chord diagrams. This is going to be your bread and butter to help you build your chord vocabulary and being able to understand that. So now that we know what strings are, the frets are, and our fingers, now we can put all this stuff together and read some chord diagrams. That will help us learn new chords at any time. The first chord we're going to deal with is going to be our C chord, all right? So if you notice looking at the chord diagram that we have lines going up and down and then lines going across. So the lines going up and down are like you're looking at your guitar like this. So straight on this direction, you have your strings going up and down. So in your chord diagram, that's going to be the same thing. So the lines going across are going to be your frets, all right? So we've got our frets here. Those are the lines going across. And that's going to tell you where you need to play, where you need to put your finger. Up under the chord diagrams, under the particular string, you'll have fingering numbers, all right? So up under those strings, you'll have a number which represents what finger you're going to play on that string. For instance, if I need to play a C chord, I'm going to first notice that above the strings, there's some zeros and X's. If there's a 0, it means that you play, or O, it means that you play the string even though you don't have a finger on it. So in C, we notice that on that first string, there's a 0 above it and there's no dot. So there's no dot because we're not putting a finger on it. But if you look at the 2nd string up, it'll have a dot and it's on the 1st fret. All right. So that leads us to trying to understand how to play with the fingers now. So you don't want your hand on the back of the neck because it limits the amount of stretch and reach that you have with your fingers. So if I lower my hand down and my thumb, you'll notice that my thumb is back here. So you'll notice the thumb is back here. It's not up here waving at everybody. Your thumb will move around the neck a little bit on the back side, but you don't want it really high because that puts the hand on the back. So once that's down, we have our finger down. That means you want your finger to come down like a little hammer. All right, so just like this, straight like that, not like this. So there's three things that will make a note kind of mute out or sound deadened. All right, the first one is that you're not pressing down hard enough. You'll have that. So if you let your finger stay arched, you have a lot more bone to press down. All right, and so use your thumb and your fingers to press down together. If you don't press down hard enough, the notes won't come out. You'll just have this deadened string sound. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be that you're playing on the fret. So you'll notice here, I'm on the fret. It's the same thing as not pressing down hard enough. But when I'm behind the fret, it comes clean. I'm pressing down hard enough, so that's two of the things out of the way. The other thing is for instance, notice we had our first string open on the C chord so far. If my first finger is leaning over, it's going to mute that first string out. So so that is another thing that will make the strings kind of sound deadened out. So first off, to recap that, press down hard enough. Second thing is to make sure that you're not on the fret. And then the third thing is to make sure that your fingers aren't leaning over at an angle. Try to keep your fingers coming at the string like little hammers, not leaning down like that. Now there's exceptions to that rule, but here in the beginning when you're learning open position chords, you definitely want to make sure that you're coming straight down on the string. Later down the road, you'll do bar chords, your fingers will lean down. There's even chords where you mute strings in between, you get into the jazzier chords. You intentionally mute strings, and you want to do that and lean over. But for now, we're not dealing with that. All right, so to continue, our first chord that we're dealing with is C. Our first finger on that second string, first fret, all right, just like that. And then our first string is open. Now we notice our third string is open. It's got the 0 above it as well. So the next note that comes in on your C chord will be on the fourth string. Notice there's no 0 or X above it. Your second finger is going to be playing that. We know that because below the fourth string on the diagram, we have a number 2, which tells us that our finger goes there. And it conveniently enough is on that second fret as well. So far we have that. Now, if we look on the fifth string, we notice that there's a number 3 below that. That's going to tell us to use our third finger. And you'll notice that that dot is on the first, second, third fret. So with these two fingers in place, first finger on the second string, first fret, our second finger, middle finger, on the fourth string, second fret, and then our third finger, ring finger, is on the fifth string, third fret, all right? And then you'll notice above the sixth string on the chart, there's an X, which means that you don't play that string. You don't have a finger on it, and you're still not playing it. If we do all of this together, we have our C chord. All right? Now, this is kind of a tough one to play at first, but notice my fingers are arched, and they're coming down on the tips. And everything is sounding clean. As you're practicing these, you might want to pick them one string at a time as well. If your fingers lean over, you'll hear that muted sound. All right, so that makes sense. That's our C chord. All right, now we're going to move to another very common chord that we're going to use, which is going to be our G. All right, so our G chord, looking at the diagram, notice it has something on the first string, third fret. All right, so you see the first string, you see the third fret moving up, 1, 2, 3, and you'll notice below that we have a number 3, which is telling us to use our third finger on that string. So far, that's what we have. Now, you'll notice the second string has a 0 above it, and there's no dot on it, so that's telling us we're going to play that open. The third string has no dot on it, but it's got a 0 above it, so that means we're going to play that third string open. And then the fourth string has got a 0 above that with no dot on the string, so that's also going to be open. Pretty easy so far. Now we're going to add our first finger on the fifth string, second fret. All right, so we have this here. All right, and then we're going to, while holding this, we're going to add our middle finger, which is our second finger, going to the sixth string, third fret. So this was pretty unusual because you got to be careful about the second finger leaning over. All right, so we have this. That's our G chord. So far we have our C, and then now we have our G. Two very common chords used together, okay? So let's keep going. Let's get some more chords under our belt here. All right, so our next chord that we're going to deal with is another one that's used a lot with C and G. This is going to be a D chord. All right, if you notice on the first string on this chart, we have our second finger, which we know that from below, is on the first string, and the dot is on the second fret, so we know that we're going to have that there. We notice that on the second string, we have a dot on the third fret, and we are going to use our third finger because the number 3 is below that string. So now we're going to add our first finger. We see a dot on the third string, second fret. And we have a number 1 below it. It tells us to use the index finger. We have a circle above the fourth string. So that tells us we're going to play that open. And then there's an X above the fifth string and above the sixth string, so we're not going to play those. So on this one, we're only going to play from the fourth string down. All right, so that gives us C, our G chord, our D chord. All right, now we're going to keep going. We're going to learn an E chord. All right, so our E chord has nothing on the first string, and it's open. Has nothing on the second string, and that's open. But on the third string, we have something on the first fret. All right, so that is going to be played with the first finger, because below that string, we have a number 1. All right, so on the fourth string, we're going to play on the second fret. And we know that we're going to use our third finger there, because the 3 is below the string. On the fifth string, we're going to use our second finger here on the second fret. Our sixth string is got a 0 above it, so that's open. So in this one, we're going to strum all 6 strings. All right, very, very common. E, used a lot. Okay, all right, so that gives us C, G, D, and E. All right, so 4 very common chords. All right, our next chord that we're going to learn is going to be an A chord. All right, A. There's a couple of different ways that people play them. Some people use their first finger, second finger, and third finger. And if you look at the chart, that's probably what it's going to say. But there are times where people with fat, stubby little fingers like myself will have to use the second finger, third finger, and fourth finger. So middle, ring, and pinky. And they're all on the second fret. So we have the second string, second fret. We have the third string, second fret. We have the fourth string, second fret. The first string will be open, and the fifth string will be open, and the sixth string will not be played because it has an X above it. So that's our A chord. Now, when we just have a letter, know that these are major chords, okay? If we just have a C chord, instead of just saying C major, they just call it C. Or a D major chord is just D. So just remember that we are playing major chords. Major chords sound happy. They have a happy sound to them. And there's a lot of music that uses all of these, okay? We have C, we have G, we have D, we have E, and we have A. All right, so now these are all major chords. So our next couple of chords we're going to learn are going to be minor. Minor chords aren't any harder or easier than the major chords. It's just a different sound. So you'll see these with the letter A, M if we're doing A minor, or E, M if we're doing E minor. All right, so we're going to start with E minor in this case. So E minor, if you think about it, looks a lot like the E chord that we did without the first finger. All right, so a lot of songs do that. All right, A minor looks exactly like E. We're just going to move everything down a set of strings. So if you look at the chart, you'll notice that your first finger is on the second string, first fret. Our third finger is going to be on the third string, second fret. Our second finger is going to be on the fourth string, second fret. And our fifth string and our first string are open. And then our sixth string is muted. And we have this. All right? All right? So that gives us some very basic chords to start playing and using. All right, getting started with this. Music is like a vocabulary. It's like a language. You want to be able to speak this language. And with chords, chords are kind of like our words in a sentence. We're going to learn some basic chords, and you got to keep in mind that's what you're doing. That's the goal, is to get one word mastered. So in this case, what helps is doing two chords and moving back and forth. Don't sit and look at all of these chords that we've already started learning and just try to do them all at one time. I recommend taking two chords at a time, playing one chord, then moving to the next chord. All right, so we're going to take two chords and go back and forth. So what that's going to do is you play that one chord, it helps you. So for instance, let's say we're doing a C chord. All right, and then let's say we're going to go to G. All right, so what we're going to do, if I just sit and hold the C chord and go, my third finger goes here, my second finger goes there, so on and so forth, that's only going to take you so far. What you need to do is get your fingers to memorize what to do, that muscle memory thing. I always associate it with like typing. If you can type, which I can't do well, and you type well, you don't even have to look at your fingers. You can look at the page and type what you're going to type. Your fingers just know where to go. Why? Well, simply because you've done it a gazillion times. So same thing here. When your fingers remake the chord shape, so I've got C, and what better excuse than to go to another chord, G in this case, and go back to C, and then back to G. All right, so we're not looking for any rhythm. We're not looking for anything else other than our fingers starting to memorize what to do. So I would play this, and I would go like 50 times. Now, as you're playing, you're not looking for speed. You want to start with playing things clean. So speed comes from accuracy. Anything you practice, if you practice it slow and really think out everything you're doing and make sure that what you're doing is correct, the more you play something correctly, the more of a chance that you're going to perform it that way. So taking your time, doing it slow and clean will always help. All right. You could pick it one string at a time also to make sure that everything's coming out clean. Now, in the beginning, it's going to be tough. You're going to have a lot of time. You're going to sit there and then you got to figure out what's going on. It's part of the process. Don't get frustrated. Understand, it's not going to happen the first time you sit down. It's just not going to be perfect. But as you keep chipping away at it, it becomes natural. And then your fingers will start to memorize again what to do. It takes time. Pressing down hard enough to make sure the note comes out. Making sure that you're not on that fret. Making sure you have fingers that aren't leaning over, muting other strings out. Take your time doing it right. Now, there will come to be a part of your practice time where you're doing this in the beginning, where just kind of go for it. It's going to sound a little rough. You might have some notes that don't come out. All right, so just do that for a small period of time to see what it feels like. All right, and then that works. Then pick another set of chords out and do the same thing. Okay, so now that we have some basic chords, we know how to play them, we know how to practice them. Let me just give you a demonstration about some basic songs. When you start learning some songs, it's a great excuse to play these chords. All right, obviously practicing them separately is great, but the rubber meets the road when you put the chords in a song context. Now, if you have a song that has a bunch of picking in it, like just picking the strings individually, I wouldn't even worry about that yet. What I would do is just strum the chord at the right time. So, for instance, a couple of songs that are good examples to start with just a few chords would be something like What I Got, Sublime. That's two chords the whole song. So just going along with it, it's in D. So we would start with D, and we would go to G. D, and G. All right? So it's a really easy tune. It's back and forth. All right, so that might be a good one to practice and go along with. Another one would be something like Simple Man, which has C, G, and A minor. And that's the whole song. All right, there's some added things. You can do some picking. And then they'll add some other notes in there too. However, don't worry about that in the beginning. Just take the simple part going C, then G, then A minor. So maybe just C, 1, 2, G for 3, 4, A minor for a whole measure, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can basically do that chord progression through the whole song. It gives you some purpose. You feel like you're doing something. It sounds good. It's going to work with it. And it's teaching you to play these chords pretty clean and evenly. Another one that's a little more rockin', but you can do as a practice on the guitar, would be The Middle by Jimmy Eat World. So you could just take D, go to A, and go to G. Now this is not the way they're playing it in the song, but you could strum along with it. A, G, D. Start back over on D, D, A, go to G, back to D. So that gives you some basic songs to kind of play along with and maybe get rolling with it. Now, there's a ton of examples for this. So just search around. There's some great apps out there that can give you some chord charts. You can look it up online. Some great tutorials here on YouTube. So hopefully this has helped. If you got any questions, comments, put them down in the bottom. Please like and subscribe. As always, I really do appreciate it. Watch these videos. Give me some comments. Let me know what you think. Give me ideas for other things to help you guys with, or just things that would be enjoyable to watch. I look forward to doing more, and I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.